Guys, I'm worried about UFC 300. So, we have been getting all these fight announcements. Dana White has been cooking lately. UFC 299 is looking like the best card of 2024 already. I mean, we got Kevin Holland versus Michael Venom Page for his debut. Sean O'Malley versus Cheeto Vera, main event. Jack Della Maddalena, Gilbert Burns. And Ian Gary is now fighting Jeff Neal. I might make another video about that, just breaking down that situation. But in this video, I want to talk about what's going on with 300 right now. All my red flags are going off right now. Because every single time Dana White drops something for another card, and they ask him about UFC 300, because we're getting close to that time. I know somebody's going to go in the comment section saying, hey, we have a few months before the card drops. Let's be patient about it. And don't get me wrong. I don't think it's going to be a terrible card. They would never allow the 300th card of the UFC to be shit. But I want to keep your expectations low because I don't think it's going to be that good. And I have a lot of reasoning for that, and we're going to go through all of that in this video. But before we begin, please consider a like, a subscribe, comment if you can. Really helps me in the algorithm. And with that out of the way, let's get started. So, the biggest reason why I think UFC 300 is going to be lower than average is because of Ramadan, okay? And I know that sounds bad, but because of Ramadan, understand that means that there's going to be no Islam Makhachev title defense. Shavkat Rakhmonov can't fight anybody. Bilal Muhammad can't fight for the title, and I know some people are cheering for that, but you probably shouldn't for a reason. All the Dagestani fighters are no longer going to be fighting at UFC 300, and I know a lot of you are like, yes. But the problem is that takes away a lot of potential matchups. Number one, when I was making a card for this video, like my dream card for UFC 300, part of that card was Leon Edwards versus Islam Makhachev. And then in the feature fight of UFC 300, you could do Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Bilal Muhammad. Because of Ramadan, 3 of those 4 fighters can't even fight. Tell me Islam Makhachev versus Leon Edwards is not a perfect main event for UFC 300. I know a lot of people are going to say Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. I have that card too. I will give you the card that I wrote up that you can do for UFC 300. But I'm not a huge fan of this card. Main event, Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. Self-explanatory. Conor McGregor has said that he will be nothing less than a main event for the entirety of his career. Even Dana confirms this. And I get it. You pay him more than any other UFC fighter. Even champions don't make as much as he does. And I'm not complaining about that, but the problem is, now, if we have a championship fight on the card, they have to be the co-main. There's a reason Jon Jones and Conor McGregor will never be on the same card, is because Conor McGregor expects Jon Jones to be the co-main, and Jon Jones expects Conor McGregor to be his co-main. That just will never happen. For the co-main event, I have Alexa Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko. I know it's a title fight, but guess what? It's also a women's title fight. They made that a fight night main event, or they were trying to. Understand that there's a difference between a men's title fight and a women's title fight. I'm sorry to tell you this right now, but you can really easily justify putting Alexa Grasso versus Shevchenko as the co-main to Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor. For the feature fight, I got Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway, BMF title fight. At this point, you almost have to make it. I know some people are saying Aljamain versus Max Holloway. But one thing that is very interesting is that according to Aljamain Sterling, the Max Holloway fight isn't happening. Aljamain Sterling has been pushing to fight Max Holloway. I don't think it's Aljamain that's losing interest in Max. I think Max is getting a contract that is really good. And the only other fight that I would say that would sell better than him versus Aljamain Sterling, which would do pretty well, would be a super fight with Justin Gaethje. Max Holloway alluded to it. Ali Abdelaziz, the manager of Justin Gaethje, even alluded to it. I think it's all but confirmed. UFC 300, BMF title fight, do it. Next up, Colby Covington, Wonderboy. Now, before somebody says in the comment section, Colby Covington's to fight Shavkat Rakhmonov, I don't think that's going to happen. I think if the UFC they want to force a number one contenders fight between Bilal Muhammad and Shavkat Rakhmonov. Winner gets to fight for the title, because they really don't want Bilal Muhammad to fight for the title. In my first draft of the card, I wanted Shavkat to fight Bilal as the main card opener, but we can't do that because of Ramadan. So instead of that, we kind of have to do Colby Covington versus Wonderboy. It's a good name, UFC 300 worthy. You don't have to make it in the feature fight, co-main, or main event. You get an amazing press conference with Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler, and Colby Covington. I mean, like, that alone sells itself. For the final fight on the card, I got Aljamain Sterling versus Calvin Kattar. Aljamain's not fighting Max Holloway. As I said earlier, Aljamain Sterling said himself on his YouTube channel that he is targeting a fight with Calvin Kattar. Personally, I wanted him to step in on short notice and fight Josh Emmett instead of Bryce Mitchell, but you know what? We don't always get what we want. Aljamain Sterling, Calvin Kattar. That's my main card. And that main card is like, I'm not even super proud of it, because I know it can be better. Now, I started on my UFC 300 dream card, and we got Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill. But here's the problem. Do you really think that they're going to have a UFC light heavyweight title fight as the co-main to Conor McGregor? Unless you're paying them good, I don't think it happens. Now, if it does happen, then okay, fine. Take Aljamain Sterling and Calvin Kattar off the card. Put Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill as the co-main and move everybody else down. But I'm being realistic here. We're relying on Jamal Hill to come back from destroying his Achilles tendon to fight Alex Pereira. Now, I know Jamal Hill is coming back to fight Alex. It's just a matter when. The problem is, with UFC 300, especially if we're taking Conor McGregor, is it limits us on what title fights can be on the card. Because there are champions like O'Malley that will gladfully give up the main event spot, but there's most other champions that won't. Like, you really think Islam Makhachev would ever for a second entertain the idea of giving up his main event spot to Conor McGregor? That will never happen. But that's what the UFC is asking right now. Now, other issues with the card. I'm going to tell you this right now. I think Dana White doesn't have a set-in-stone main event. I don't think he does. And I think part of that problem is John Kavanagh, the head coach of Conor McGregor, says that there is a pretty solid possibility that he won't be able to make UFC 300. Now, you had Conor say a day afterwards saying, I can make UFC 300, but if you remember, Conor was supposed to fight on UFC 296. UFC 296 was meant to be headlined by Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler. What happened? There was even a fake poster for that. So, understand that if I have to put stock into either John Kavanagh or Conor McGregor, I choose John Kavanagh. And if Conor McGregor is not fighting on UFC 300, this card is shit. Like, I don't know how you fix this card. At this point, like, I say screw it. Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya, light heavyweight belt. Whatever. I don't even care. We can't put Hamza on the card because Ramadan. We can't do that. We can't do Leon Edwards fighting Bilal. We can't do Leon Edwards fighting Shavkat, Ramadan. John Jones won't be able to come back until September of 2024. Tom Aspinall has basically been told, hey, keep bitching about John Jones and Stipe. We're going to make you defend the belt against Cyril Gane or Almeida. So Tom Aspinall's not fighting. What do we do here? The UFC, I think, has made a mistake here. They've put all their stock in Conor. But the problem is that UFC 300, you are putting so much stock in Conor that he has to sell the card. And if he can't make the card's dead. I'm sorry. Now, And every time that you talk to, like whenever Dana talks about UFC 300, he says, I can't believe that's the first fight on the prelims. Dana, I don't care what the first fight on the prelims is. What I'm paying for is the main card. You know the thing that you're always honest about for pirating? Yeah. I'm worried about that. You can have Bo Nickel fight Saraputin Magomedov on the undercard right next to Cody Garbrandt versus Dominic Cruz 2. Perfect prelims, but guess what? That's not what I'm spending damn near $100 on every single month. UFC 300, I'm getting rather concerned for because the way that we're looking at right now, we're expecting somebody like Sean Strickland to make a... I don't know. I don't know how UFC 300 is going to play out. The rumors that we were hearing are very alarming. Something like Misa Tate fighting Ronda Rousey on the card. That was horrible. It just got confirmed that GSP won't be able to come back to fight Nick Diaz, which I am so happy for. The only really confirmed fights that are said to be happening is Paul Felder versus Jim Miller. I'm sorry if I'm worried about that, okay? That sounds like a mid-prelim fight, not a main event spot. But there you go. That's just my ranting on UFC 300. If you have an idea of how we're going to fix this card, put it in the comment section below. And if you enjoy this content, please consider a like, subscribe. It really helps me in the algorithm. Adios, guys.